So we're going to talk about a new definition of leadership. What do we mean by leadership? What does leadership mean to you? We need to ask this question. This is a very important question because leaders are making the new world. They're making the new world better. And where we are today depended on the leaders who brought us here to where we are, who created value for us today. And where we will be tomorrow will depend on the leaders who will create the better tomorrow. So we need to be clear on what is leadership. Are we actually becoming the best leaders that we can be for this world? And before we continue with that, we have to look at a few misconceptions about what leadership is and what is a leader. One of the very clearly considered misconceptions is that sometimes we think that a leader has to be an extrovert. What does extrovert mean? Extrovert means someone who is a social butterfly, who is out there talking to everybody, enjoys and gets energy from being with people. But reality shows us that not every leader is a social butterfly. Many of the leaders that are out there are actually introverts, find it difficult to express themselves sometimes, find it difficult to mingle, get energy from being alone, from sitting back, and that is okay. So if you are trying to become a better leader by becoming an extrovert, then maybe you are not doing yourself a favor. Maybe you can put your energy in something else that will help you become a better leader. What else is there that is a misconception? Another misconception is that we wait until we are in a position of power, which means, sure, I will lead, give me the authority to lead, and I will lead. I want to be a leader, but give me a position to lead. Again, reality shows us and history shows us that lots of leaders out there never had the authority. They were never considered as positional power leaders, we call it. They were not CEOs or prime ministers or presidents. They are people who decided to stand up for a change, and they were able to make that change. So if you are waiting for a position to make you a leader, then you might wait for too long. It is not a position. It's not about the position. It's not about extroversion. Then what is leadership about? What is leadership about? There are certain things that are common among all leaders. What are these things? There are things that are common among all leaders. What are these components? There are three components that I would like to talk about, which are strategy, people, and self. These are really the components of leadership. Strategy, people, and self. So let's take a look at the first item. Let's take a look at strategy. Research shows that the most effective leaders out there are able to think strategically. So that's easy to say, think strategically. But how do I think strategically? We have first to look at what do we mean by strategy. How can I tell if I'm strategic or tactical? These are two sides of the coin, the strategy and the tactic. So how can I tell if I am being strategic? We need strategic thinkers. Companies today are looking for strategic thinkers. The more strategic a thinker you are, the better and more effective leader you will be. So what do we mean by strategy? When you think about strategy, think about three tests that you can do to determine whether you are strategic or tactical. Let's start with the first test. Let's create some circles that will tell us how we are dealing with the picture that we see. Are we looking at the big picture, or we are looking at a very narrow picture? Which one? You can do a very simple test. Think about what you are worried about today, what you are trying to do. Who does it affect? Does it affect you? Or is it a little bit bigger of a circle? Does it affect your immediate family? Then there's a bigger circle. It affects your extended family. Then we can go bigger picture. We can talk about affecting your neighborhood, your society. And we can go further to talk about the region, the country, and then the region, and then the world. One leader out there, his name is Peter Diamandis, we'll talk about him a little bit later. He says, any project that will affect less than 1,000 million people, 1 billion people, I'm not interested in. So you have to decide what level of big picture are you looking at. The bigger the picture, the more strategic you are. So bigger picture is one. The other one is longer term, long term. Meaning, are you thinking about things that will help you today, tomorrow, in a month, in a year? Are you thinking about things for 10 years down the line, 3 years down the line? Your thoughts are strategic when they are longer term. And finally, in your thoughts, are you reactive or proactive? What is the difference? Proactive means that I am trying actually to change the world, create a better picture. Reactive means I'm reacting to a situation. Like what? For example, poor economic conditions. I'm reacting to the poor economic conditions by probably trying to save more, trying harder to find work, etc. This is reactive. Proactive means I'm trying to change this status. If we have poor economic conditions, maybe there are opportunities from that. If I'm having certain problems or challenges personally, maybe I can find an opportunity from that. This is proactive thinking. Some people think reactive or proactive. The more proactive you are, the more strategic you are. So you can tell very easily if you are strategically thinking or tactically thinking. I'm not saying you can be strategically thinking all the time, but I hope some of your thinking is strategic. The more you spend on strategic thinking, the more effective leader you can be. Now this is all good, and we defined what strategy is. We said big picture, long term, proactive. And we said being tactical is more on the detail, more short term, and we said more reactive. Okay, good. But how do I become, if I need to become more strategic, how do I become more strategic? Well, luckily, there are very simple ways to do that. And I will talk about one of them. Only one. And it works like magic, I promise you that. That thing is to ask questions. To ask important questions. What is more important, questions or answers? Questions are much more important than answers. So find a good question and you will be strategic. For example, how about we ask a question like this? Think about this. What would be a picture of me being successful? What does success look like? Now, if you thought money, which happens to me, think money, you have to know that money is a result of success. It is not success. Don't think money. If you're thinking happy, happy is a result of success. But what do you look like when you are successful? Try to draw a picture and try to draw it in the future. Think of success, for example, 3 years from now. What does it look like? What do you look like when you are successful? And I mean in detail. Think about where you are, what you are doing, who are you with, where are you sitting, how you are dressed, how you look, everything. How you're thinking. So try to draw a picture of success in the future and try to make it vivid. Vivid means dynamic. Don't try to draw a picture that is general. Try to make it vivid, real, in color. Okay? This is one way to make you very strategic, help you think strategically. Also in the area of questions, we can look at Peter Diamandis, the person who I mentioned earlier, the guy who said, if it does not affect 1 billion people, I'm not interested in that project. Now, when I heard this from Peter Diamandis, I said, this is impossible. I said, I want to know, what did this guy do? Go check on Google what this guy did. The guy has worked and is working on projects that will affect you and me. It will definitely affect more than 1 billion people. So what does he say? He says every morning he wakes up and he asks 3 questions. What am I doing? Why am I doing it? And is there a simpler, not better, simpler way to do it? Very nice questions. Now, the tougher the question to answer, and the more you struggle with the question, the better the question is. The tougher the question for you to confront makes it a better question. I'll give you 3 more questions to experiment with. One of them is, if I was not afraid, what would I do? If I am not afraid, what would I do? Here's another question for you. If money was not an issue, money is not an issue, what would you do different? And a third question for you. These are tough questions. And don't expect the answer to come to you immediately. A third question is, if I cannot fail, failure is not an option, I will succeed, what will you do different? So think about questions. When you go to questions, ask the right questions, you will build your ability to be strategic. What else is there? So we talked about being strategic. We need to talk about the people aspect. What does that mean, people? What do we mean by people? Let's look at research. Research shows that 75% of lack of motivation or disengagement of employees comes from what? A poor leader. A manager at the leadership level not able to inspire, not able to motivate, not able to ask the right questions. Imagine that. 75% of employee problems comes from poor leadership. So you have an effect on people. How do you affect people? Let's talk about that. Again, there are ways to do this in a very simple fashion. How do we do that? I love hacking. Hacking means give me quick things that will help me improve now. And I will give you hacks, very simple hacks to do this. So how can I engage people better? How can I deal with people better? Here are the rules, 3 rules. Rule number 1 is pay attention. Pay attention. Usually when we talk to people, we are engaged in our mind and self-absorbed. How do people look at me? What are they thinking about me? What should I answer to what they are saying? Maybe they are attacking me. How do I answer this attack? Okay. What should I say, right? We're thinking as people are talking. Paying attention means give people 110% of your attention. When people are talking, give them 110% of your attention. What else? We need to understand. So seek understanding. When people are saying something and it's not clear to you, seek understanding. Try to understand. Ask questions. Why? How? Not judgment, but ask questions. So you need to pay attention, you need to ask questions, and what else? We need to accept. This is very difficult. Acceptance means no judgment. Look at your mind at any moment. When somebody is speaking, or when you're talking to someone, or when you see someone, judgment immediately jumps in. This is good, this is bad, this is not the way I would do it, this is not the way he should do it, this is not the right way to speak, this is not the right way of this or that. This is judgment. Try to clear away from judgment into acceptance. Accept people as they are. So this is the people side. 3 things you can do. Pay attention, understand, accept. Now, when we talk about self, we need also to understand self. This is called self-awareness. How do I raise my self-awareness? Why is this important? Is this a philosophical issue or a real issue? Let's see what research tells us. Research tells us that companies who have employees with better self-awareness, they perform financially better. You will make more money for your company and for yourself if you have better self-awareness. What does self-awareness mean? So to stay away from theoretical stuff and talk about only things that actually are practical. We need to talk about how can I raise self-awareness. This is a very important subject today, and there are ways to do it. One thing you can do, take a performance DNA test. Performance DNA means each one of us has a DNA. Just like a physical DNA, we also have a performance DNA. What actually constitutes my performance DNA tells me how I react to different situations. For example, how do you solve problems? The way we solve problems varies. Some people are decisive or commanding, which means I know the answer, I want to give the answer now. So if I'm in a group, I tell people what is the answer. Some people are collaborative. Collaborative means I don't want to give answers, I want to listen and I want to work with people and let the answer come. Which one is better? In reality, there is no right and wrong. It is your style, but you have to know it to be able to deal with it. For example, I'm a very commanding person, and I catch myself always wanting to give people answers. And then, if I'm aware of that, I can just pay attention to the person in front of me, pull back and ask a question simply saying, what do you think? How do you think we should act? Right? This comes from self-awareness. If I'm collaborative, that means probably I take more time to take decisions. And when I take more time to make decisions, that means sometimes I miss opportunities. On one hand, it's good because that means I think about things very well. But again, I might miss opportunities because I don't want to take decisions. Which one are you? You need to know. I'm not saying change. I'm saying adapt and learn which one you are. Same thing on the people side. How do you persuade people? Do you persuade people by being out there, talking to them? Or do you persuade people by being reserved, sitting back and watching and observing? Both are good. There is no good, no right or wrong. But you need to know. So how do you deal with change also? Are you rapid and you want to change things quickly? Or are you more stable, which means you take your time, you don't rush into change? Some people want to change for the sake of change. Every morning they wake up saying, how can I change things today? And some people will change when there is a need for change. I'm not saying this is good or bad. I'm saying you have to adapt. When you need to move rapidly, you move rapidly. When you need to take your time, you take your time. And finally, how do you deal with policies and procedures, with rules, with law? Some people believe that rules were made to be broken. Some people believe rules are out there to be respected. We cannot say this is right or wrong. What we can say is that both personalities exist, both types of performance exist, and we need to be self-aware of who we are, in addition to being aware of where other people are. Draw this and try to draw your performance DNA. See what it looks like. Be self-aware. And then improvement comes. So that's it. This is how you become self-aware. Leaders of the 21st century need to do three things. They need to think strategically. They need to know how to deal with people. And they also need to be self-aware. Thank you.